Stockton Soil Conservation District with the Frederick Soil Conservation District for efficiency and organization. It has the support of the Frederick County delegation, and it was passed unanimously in the House. But it's very just a technical bill, and we appreciate your support.
We have a letter. Just checking to make sure we have a letter from the delegation, but notwithstanding, we'll, okay, why don't we, any questions for Delegate Pippi? Half the Frederick County delegation. Seeing none, that includes bill hearing on House Bill 1017. Delegate Johnson, why don't you come up next? We're going to be on House Bill 620, and we do have one virtual witness. Is she in the queue?
Yes.
Okay, we have one virtual witness signed up favorable with amendments, but Delegate Johnson, we're going to start with you on House Bill 620.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Steve Johnson here to present House Bill 620, Education, Sexual Abuse, Assault Awareness and Prevention Program, Human and Sex Trafficking. You've seen this bill before, so I'm not going to go totally in depth, but this bill requires the State Board of Education and other non-public schools incorporated education and programs on the awareness and prevention of human and sex trafficking. This is to be taught by teachers trained in providing instruction on the awareness and prevention of human trafficking, sex trafficking, and grooming, and the incorporation into the existing health curriculum for students in grades 6 through 8. Now, the reason we picked 6 through 8 is because that's the average age of people who are trafficked, 12 to 15. You should have on your desk a map, and my office emailed it to you in color. It's a heat map of human trafficking, and on it, Maryland is glowing red hot, and that's because of our major accessibility to infrastructure such as 95, truck stops, bus stops, airports, and the Port of Baltimore have allowed those traffickers to view our state as a gold mine for victims. Now, I put this bill in several times. When I first put it in, human trafficking was ranked the 3rd largest criminal activity in the world. And then it went to number 2. And now they think it may be number 1, but they don't have the stats on the human organ harvesting part of that, which is horrifying. And by the way, your kidneys, each kidney is worth about $250,000. This new industry around the world has a new nickname. It's called wealth care. The National Institute of Health says human trafficking is a pressing public health concern, which transcends all races, social classes, demographics, and gender. No population is exempt from the ever-present threat of traffickers. Traffickers capitalize on their victims' innocence and desperation, which make young children incredibly susceptible to this crime. We must ensure the well-being of our youth, and this starts with teaching them how to be more vigilant against traffickers, or how to defend themselves if they find themselves in a danger of being groomed or stalked. But when I thought about this bill, there's several states that tried this bill and they had failed because of the cost. So I went and spoke to several directors of curriculum to see if we could incorporate this into our health class here in Maryland. And they all told me that would not be an issue. And the opposition, they talk about that it's already covered in COMAR. Well, I pulled up COMAR and I went through it. It talks about sexual abuse and assault, but really not as much into sex trafficking. And then they also talk about they would have to go hire an instructor and all the costs involved. Well, if you look at the physical note, it does not reflect that. And the directors of curriculum did not reflect that when I talked to them. All it takes is a little bit of training, and there's several organizations out there that will come in and help with training as well as literature for free. So I just think it's a shame that we have allowed this criminal activity to go to possibly number 1 in the world, and we've done nothing to educate our kids about it. This bill was unanimous in committee and unanimous on the floor. And with that, I would request a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, before we go to the virtual witness who signed up favorable amendments, questions for the sponsor, Delegate Johnson? Vice Chair Kagan, your question?
Just a really quick question. So I see that the state board is going to adopt the regs to carry it out, which makes sense. I wonder whether you've had conversations. How many hours are we talking about? How big a
I don't
pod
want,
would this
you
be?
know, I don't want to dictate how they do their job because they're good at doing their job.
Okay,
I leave that for them to work out. The program, the class, the hours, that really is up to the folks in education. They would be better served figuring that out.
thank you, Delegate Johnson. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any additional questions for Delegate Johnson? Okay, thank you, sir. We're going to go to the one witness virtual,
Thank you.
Kashina Cross, who signed up favorable with amendments. Ms. Cross, you're going to be on the 2-minute clock, okay?
Thank you so much, Chairman, and I am grateful so much for this bill. Delegate, you have an amazing journey ahead of you in making sure that we and our children are all safe. It is so important that the House adopts Bill 0620. I'm grateful for this bill because I've worked with, over the last years as the mayor of the city of Glenarden, many young folks who have not had the education or the training on what it is to actually be trafficked. They don't know what that means. And it's not just sex, it's about workers. We see a lot of immigrants coming in our nation. Many of them don't have the proper documentation. So anything that forces you to work against your will and do things that you wouldn't normally do is considered trafficking. And it's a very vicious crime. My amendment is sexual violence, and if sexual violence starts early. One of the things about human trafficking is that we're not teaching our young folks, girls and boys, about the common issue called sexual violence. 1 in 3 men have experienced sexual violence, and also 1 in 4 women. And that is literally a statistic that we can no longer afford with our young people. More than 4 to 5 females are raped, and they don't report because of shame. Shame is the #1 enemy to solving this problem called trafficking. It is about control. The disproportionate effects on the groups, women, racial, ethnic minorities, all these groups are experiencing a higher burden when it comes down to trafficking, but also, as an example, 2 in 5 are non-Hispanic Americans. If we're looking at our Indian population, our Native American population, our multiracial women are particularly parts of the rape victims that we see across our lifetime.
Okay, I think we lost you, but thank you for your testimony. There are no questions. Oh, there you are. Any questions for our virtual witness? Okay, Senator Carrozza.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your testimony, and it's powerful. Just to clarify, your amendment would include sexual violence to what's already been being proposed. Okay,
That is correct, and it is so critical. This is a very vicious, but more than commonly overlooked problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the witness? Oh, seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 620. Thank you, Delegate Johnson. Okay, I see several of my friends from the House. I'm not sure who, it's kind of an honor code. I don't know who came in here first. Patterson, Chris Adams, Delegate Conaway, Delegate Smith. Okay, who thinks they came here first? Come on.
Adams.
Delegate Adams? Okay, Delegate Adams, why don't you come up and then we'll go Delegate Patterson, you're next.
Conaway.
And then Conaway, and then.
We're all acting like this is the hot seat here a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay, so we're gonna go to Delegate Adams on House Bill 1512, and is Jeannie Hadaway Riccio, she had to leave, she was here a little.
No, she's
there
right
you
here.
are. See, you're behind the podium. Why don't you come on up?
Yeah.
You signed up favorable. Former delegate, former cabinet secretary, come up, join Delegate Adams on, again, House Bill 1512. So you, as sponsor, you take the time you need to present House Bill 1512.
Okay.
And we'll take it from there, okay?
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. For the record, Delegate Chris Adams here to present House Bill 1512. I am joined today with Delegate Hutchinson, my co-delegate, as we bring this bill forward. In 2020, I passed Chapter 413, and on this issue, it did have a sunset. And so what this bill does is repeals the sunset. The bill makes permanent an authorization to use the Bay Restoration Fund septic account for specified costs associated with connecting a property using on-site sewage disposal systems to an existing municipal wastewater facility that has signed a funding agreement with MDE. where it's under construction to achieve either ENR or BNR level treatment. Without the bill, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair, the sunset repeals this summer. So the bill's here because we have projects in place, projects that are coming forward, and this bill is super important to make sure that those potential projects are realized. But frankly, we have in the state 25 wastewater treatment plants, and where they're in the process of going through some of these improvements. So it's a very important statewide bill. I thank Jeannie Hadaway Riccio for bringing the issue forward, and we appreciate your committee's late consideration of this very important bill. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll go to Jeannie Hadaway Riccio, my former seatmate in the House Economic Matters Committee. So it's a bit of a reunion.
Yes.
Jeannie, why don't you weigh in?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. You have my written testimony, so I will be brief. For the record, Jeannie Hadaway Riccio, I'm here representing RAL Inc. We have many clients throughout the state of Maryland that are anxious to eliminate their failing septic systems by connecting to public wastewater treatment. This legislation helps them to do that much more efficiently, which means our state is going to meet our Chesapeake Bay goals more efficiently. And with that, we respectfully request your favorable report.
Okay, any questions for the sponsor or our distinguished witness? Okay, I think that's it. Seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on House Bill 512. We'll next go to 1512. My little one was crossed out. 1512, Delegate Patterson. We'll take you up now. We're on House Bill 151. Delegate Patterson, House Bill 151.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the Education, Energy, and the Environment Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Edith Patterson, sponsor of this bill. And what it does, it sets a time frame for filling a Charles County Board of Education vacancy. It further requires the board to provide greater transparency by the streaming meetings consistent with the Open Meetings Act. This bill is really important because it sets, it creates the time frame for filling vacancies, and it also provides specific rules in terms of how the vacancies are announced and how decisions are made. The report, this bill has the support from the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education, the Charles County delegation that includes both delegates and senators. I respectfully urge you to vote favorably for House Bill 151 with the proposed amendments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a question for Delegate Patterson for Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Delegate Patterson. Good to have you here. I have a quick question. So you're proposing to change from 60 days to 90 days, and the length of time that the vacancy would remain empty. But what's also interesting to me is that the county board, so those that are remaining, how many members on your Board of Education?
Charles County has 9 members.
Okay, so let's say there were 8 left. So they would vote and choose maybe not to fill a vacancy that occurs in an election year for the seat that is vacant, for a seat that is vacant. So hypothetically, that would be vacant for a year.
Well, it would be vacant for a year, or it depends on the time in which the vacancy occurs. If it occurs within the 90 days, then we would use that time. But if it occurs after that or closer to an election year, what they're trying to do, suggesting, is that we not have a special election.
Yes.
But that if an election is pending, that vacancy would be filled during that time.
That sounds a little bit familiar, Mr. Chair, colleagues. Interesting. Okay. Thank you, Delegate.
Okay, any additional questions for Delegate Patterson? Okay, seeing none, thank you. That concludes bill here in House Bill 151. I'm going to take Delegate Conaway next. Why don't we come up here, Delegate Conaway, and we're going to now be on House Bill 730.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Delegate Frank Conaway, here to introduce House Bill 730. House Bill 730 requires the State Department of Education to develop an instructive program on the collateral consequences of a criminal conviction. The program will teach students in a short period of time about the legal consequences, including losing access to programs and services that result in addition to being convicted for a crime. Public middle schools will administer the program to students who are placed in school suspension and to students who are suspended from school after they return to school. The fiscal note states that the revenues are not affected, and this will be pretty much, as I see it, an asset for our community for what's happening right now with the juvenile problems that we're facing. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that I can.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Delegate Conway?
Thank you so very
Okay,
much. Now,
Thank you. That concludes Bill hearing on House Bill 730. Is Delegate Smith, where is she? She back here? And I get, okay, okay, I thought she was here in person. She left, so you're representing her, okay? And then I see Delegate Wilkins. And are you here on behalf of Dorchester, Delegate Hutchinson? Okay, I apologize. Okay, why don't you start? We're going to start with you on House Bill 1164, on behalf of Delegate Smith, okay? And then we'll go from there.
Hello, members. My name is Morgan Phillips. I am Delegate Stephanie Smith's Chief of Staff, and I'm here to present House Bill 1164. So House Bill 1164 essentially serves as an extension of last session's House Bill 384, which prohibits institutions of higher education from withholding a student's transcript due to a debt owed to the school. House Bill 1164 will expand this effort to schools K through 12 that participate in state-funded education programs. It's important to note the Attorney General's Office of Consumer Protection deemed that academic institutions are not secured creditors and do not have the right to withhold goods or services as a method of debt collection. This practice being used as a tool of recovery is improper and punishes a student for a parent's financial obligation to the school. MSDE noted that they receive on average a number of around 25 complaints a year regarding non-public schools not issuing a student's transcript due to lack of payment. And if you would, I'd like to read you the testimony from another member of the MGA's relative who this actually happened to, and as a result had to repeat 10th grade. It said, and dear Delegate Smith, in 2003, I found myself repeating the 10th grade as my former Catholic private high school withheld my academic transcripts. My student account had an outstanding balance, which as a 16-year-old, I could not afford to settle myself due to financial hardships at home. Facing this challenge, I transferred schools during the second week of class after an unsuccessful battle for my transcripts and other school documents. As a scholar, I encountered an arduous transition to the new school, impacting my GPA and jeopardizing my athletic eligibility. It's disheartening that a child should endure denial of access to education due to a debt not incurred by the child, but imposed by the school. The denial of my transcripts forced me to retake the 10th grade courses, throughout the 11th and 12th grade. I attended summer school, but lost the opportunity to advance my education by taking college courses as a senior. And with this being said, Delegate Smith would like to have the provision in last year's House Bill 384 extended to schools that receive essentially public dollars from being able to withhold a student's transcript as a result of a debt that the family could not afford to pay. And happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for our witness? Okay, seeing none, that concludes Bill hearing on 1164. We're gonna, Delegate Hutchinson will take you next on behalf of Dorchester County, and then we'll go to Delegate Williams after that. So we are now on House Bill 1409. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam Vice Chair and the members of the committee. For the record, my name is Delegate Tom Hutchinson from District 37B on the beautiful Eastern Shore. I'm here as the chair of the Dorchester County delegation, and I'm here presenting House Bill 1409, Dorchester County definition of public school employee alterations, which there is no cross-file. It's a fairly simple bill. The purpose of the bill is to create a non-certificated supervisory employee with collective bargaining rights. The definition of public school employee does not allow non-certified employee to be a part of that. By doing so, they would be able to be under the same collective bargaining as certified supervisors within the school district. And it's only affects a handful of them, but it's very meaningful to those members of the school system to be a part of this collective bargaining. I have strong support from the Board of Education, a letter you should have received from the Board of Education, and it's also strongly supported by the Teachers Union. So I ask for your favorable vote on House Bill 1409. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for our representative, Delegate Hutchinson, on behalf of the Dorchester County delegation? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on
Thank
House
you.
Bill 1409. Delegate Williams, why don't you come on up on House Bill 641? Welcome.
Thank you. I think this is my first time here. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and the members of the Senate Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. I'm Delegate Nicole Williams, and I'm testifying in favor of House Bill 641, also known as Election Law Curbside Voting. This bill would ensure that there is one designated curbside voting location in each county during the primary and general elections. This is not an emergency bill, so if this bill were to pass, it would go into effect for 2026 elections. These designated areas must be determined by the local board at least 6 months in advance and are subject to approval by the State Board of Elections. This would expand access to voting for individuals who have mobility limitations, but still wish to vote in person. Like a lot of bills that are introduced, the sponsor typically either has a personal experience that causes them to introduce legislation or a concern from a constituent. In this case, it was somewhat both. My friend and Maryland resident, Monica Wiley, who is here with us today, brought this matter to my attention. If you get an opportunity to chat with Ms. Wiley, she will tell you her story about how she was in a tragic car accident with a drunk driver as a little girl and lost both of her parents and suffered from a spinal cord injury that affects her to this day. She is a former Virginia resident and was surprised to learn when she moved to Maryland that Maryland does not have curbside voting. So she brought this to my attention. And when I learned that 23 other states and the District of Columbia have some form of curbside voting, I knew I needed to do something about this. And as someone who had knee surgery during the last election and had mobility issues, I absolutely sympathize. Therefore, House Bill 641, when it was on the House side, did not receive any serious opposition. And however, but experiments do not need to be conducted to see that there is a direct disadvantage for disabled individuals to vote in person without access to curbside voting. This bill passed the House Ways and Means Committee with unanimous favorable vote and also passed the House of Delegates with a significant majority of favorable votes, 116 to 20. As I previously mentioned, there are 23 bipartisan states like North Carolina, Virginia, Wisconsin, plus the District of Columbia that already require or allow curbside voting. Each election cycle, some Maryland residents are forced to have to overcome physical hardships in order to exercise their right to vote if they choose not to do mail-in voting. And some may decide not to participate at all just due to the struggle that in-person voting would cause them. And so while we do have vote by mail, the ballots are not automatically mailed to everyone. You have to request your ballot. And if you forget to submit the request, then you're forced to have to vote in person. During the 2020 election, with the usage of absentee ballots, 62% of people with disabilities or mobility issues voted. Additional methods may increase this number for future elections. And approximately 11% of all Marylanders have some type of cognitive, hearing, vision, or ambulatory disability, which can impact their ability to contribute to the state vote. And this number does not even include individuals with a temporary disability. You have written testimony from former Congressman Tony Coelho in support of this legislation. Congressman Coelho was the primary sponsor of the American Disabilities Act and is the former chairman and current member of the board of directors of the Epilepsy Foundation. He has been a staunch advocate for the majority of his life on matters that affect those with disabilities, from serving as chairman of the President's Committee on Employment of People with Disabilities to vice chair of the National Task Force on Employment of Adults with Disabilities. Curbside voting is effective for individuals who are physically unable to go inside, and this bill will help people to vote comfortably without unnecessary stressors. It could also assist individuals who may be pregnant, elderly individuals, and other individuals with, say, life-threatening illnesses that do not see going inside a crowded building or standing in long lines as a safe option for them. Passing this legislation will allow all individuals the ability to exercise their right to vote in person and significantly contribute to our election outcomes. And again, lots of other states allow this type of voting safely and securely. And I do believe that the individuals of Maryland deserve this right and the right to vote in any manner they so choose. And we want to encourage people to perform their civic duty. And for those reasons, I urge this committee to give a favorable report to House Bill 641.
Thank you, Delegate Williams. Any questions for the sponsor? Delegate Williams, we've got Vice Chair Kagan, then Senator Carozza. Okay. Okay, Senator Carozza, you want to lead off and then we'll go to Vice Chair Kagan.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate, for this bill. And given that I represent an area that's disproportionately senior and elderly, I see a lot of this in my 3 counties. So I am appreciative of this bill. I also work closely with the local election officials, and I see that I was happy to see that they were open to this, although they were raising, I think, some security issues. My question is, in their testimony, at least dated today, they had a recommendation for a pilot program or a study, and I did not know if they had shared that recommendation with you.
Yeah, I spoke extensively with them over the interim, and I do believe the bill before us is in a sense a pilot program. The original versions of this bill basically was much broader in terms of the number of locations and the scope of the curbside voting. And so by narrowing the bill to its current form to have simply one location in every county is a bit of a pilot program, because then it allows us to see how this would work. We also work extensively with Jared Demarius with the State Board of Elections as well on a lot of the language that you see in the current bill to try to get it into a form that we think will work feasibly for the local board as well as the state board.
Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, I want to thank the good delegate for reaching out to me and having conversations. I appreciate your diligence, and I know that you care about this. I am right now on the, I'm honored to serve as the Democratic legislator nationally on the Election Assistance Commission, and they have a page on curbside voting, and I'm just looking at that. One of the things that's not clear to me, and I don't think you and I discussed it, do people self-identify as disabled, as needing to vote curbside?
They would self-identify. We're not requiring the local board to verify whether or not they have a disability or not.
And that data is not being maintained anywhere? So
currently it's not being maintained, no.
Wouldn't be if this passed?
No, it wouldn't be if this passed.
Okay, so I'm in a hurry. I have no disability that would preclude me from going into a polling place, but I'm in a hurry. I've got a meeting. It's hard to park at this location. I'm just gonna pull in and park that way. There's nothing that would preclude that, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any additional questions for the sponsor, Delegate Williams? We've got Senator Simonero.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm much more sympathetic to this year.
Oh.
The lift is broken in the Senate bill, so I had to go outside to come here.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, just logistically, and I see it says anybody could come, but they're going to tell them it's primarily for those with disabilities. So I decide I want to do it. It's at this location. I come there. Do they give me a paper ballot and I fill it out in my car in the privacy of my own, and then I hand them back the ballot, and then they would take it and put it in the machine?
So one of the things that we worked on with the language, because there were initially some reservations expressed by the National Federation of the Blind with regards to the ballot marking.
And I'm sorry if I missed some. I just came in from a bill here.
Oh, no, no worries. And I'm trying to make sure I have the language there. I think it's probably around page 4. So it says the voter will request from the election judge. The election judge will bring out the poll book to the curbside location. And I'm looking at page 4, starting roughly around line 24. So the voter would provide the election judge with the information required to check in through the poll book at the curbside location. Then the election judge shall give a voter using curbside voting the choice to vote by marking a paper ballot or by using a ballot marking device at the curbside voting location.
Okay, so this is another polling location set up similar to any other polling location.
Yeah, and it could be at a separate polling location as
Right.
determined by the local board, or it could be at an existing early vote site or primary election site as determined by the local board of elections, or it could even be at the actual local board of elections. It's wherever the local board deems is the best location within their particular county.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any additional questions? Vice Chair Kagan?
Nope.
No, we're good?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Williams. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 641.
Thank you.
We're going to next go to Delegate Guyton's representative. We've got Ms. Caitlin Klim-Kellner here, and we're going to be on House Bill 1097. And the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Chairman Feldman, Madam Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the Education, Energy, and the Environment Committee. For the record, my name is Caitlin Klim-Kellner, and I am Policy Director for Delegate Michelle Guyton of District 42B. We respectfully request a favorable report on House Bill 1097 that clarifies the duties of a registered veterinary technician in Maryland Code. Our state faces serious shortages in the veterinary field, while registered veterinary technicians are underutilized and their advanced training is disincentivized due to a lack of clarity and consistency regarding their duties. There are very few regulations on veterinary technicians in Maryland law. This bill will codify the duties that non-registered veterinary assistants and registered veterinary technicians can perform in Maryland. Veterinary assistants are untrained or a person who is trained in-house to assist a practice. Registered veterinary technicians must graduate from an accredited training program or pass a skill set assessment and pass a national exam in order to be registered with the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. This legislation is based on recommendations and model legislation from the American Veterinary Medical Association in partnership with the Association of Veterinary State Boards. HB 1097 defines levels of veterinary supervision and which duties can be performed under each for both veterinary assistants and veterinary technicians. This bill does not expand the scope of practice for veterinary technicians beyond what is codified in our surrounding states. For example, Delaware is much more liberal in this area than this bill. We are not touching rabies shots like Delaware did. It also does not allow them to develop an independent relationship with clients. In fact, this bill is quite conservative, listing only duties considered a level 1 out of 3 as defined in the levels of veterinary technician utilization from the American Animal Hospital Association. And the level 1 is the most basic level. When in fact, a registered veterinary technician is trained to do so much more. It's also important to point out that the power to allow or disavow a registered veterinary technician to perform any of these duties remains within the supervising veterinarian's rights. HB 1097 only enables veterinarians to better utilize these well-trained individuals. Delegate Guyton has worked with the Maryland Veterinary Medical Association for many months on this and appreciates their continued engagement with this and their willingness to work with us to get everyone on the same page. Delegate Guyton is also grateful to the Department of Agriculture and the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners for their assistance in feedback. We're asking that you please support HB 1097 with one amendment that fixes a drafting error. The bill passed unanimously in the Environment and Transportation Committee and in the House, and we respectfully ask for a favorable report on 1097.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for our sponsor's representative, Delegate Guyton's representative here on this bill? Okay, we've got Senator Lewis Young.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this bill. Would this bill enable a vet tech to be able to offer their services in a shelter?
So this bill actually, it specifies in the bill on page, and please bear with me. I want to make sure I just have the right page. It will allow on page 8, it says, it clarifies for a veterinary technician who works in an animal shelter, about euthanasia, and it will allow the registered veterinary technicians to continue to work in animal shelters. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1097. Is somebody here from Howard County on behalf of the Howard County delegation? Okay, we do have a bill, House Bill 1338. Nobody's here from Howard County? Okay, well, going once, twice, 3 times. Do we have a delegation letter at least? Ironically, the final bill of the 2020 bill hearing of the 2024 session is a bill hearing where nobody showed up. And that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1338 and concludes the bill hearings for 2020.